Hello and welcome back to the Pursuing Freedom podcast. I am your host, Erin Bradley, and it's my mission to help you build a life you don't need a vacation from. If you're new here, welcome aboard and buckle up because I have a great show in store for you. Today, I'm joined by my pal, Neil Mathweg, for an encore interview. Not only did Neil take his family on an RV road trip all over the country, just like Tony and I did, he did it while running multiple businesses. So you can imagine he's a man after my own heart. Neil is the host of the Agent Rise podcast, and he is an absolute gem. As a former real estate agent, he understands firsthand the struggle of getting stuck. And like me, he teaches others the importance of transforming from the inside out. And he shares his journey today, which is very personal, intimate, and inspiring. So let's jump right in. But before we do, I want to be sure you save the date for my annual lifestyle and business design workshop on Thursday, November 30th. From 10 to 12 Mountain Time. If you've attended in the past, you know the drill. I'm going to walk you through reflection, vision, and goal setting. It'll help you arrive at goals that are anchored in your heart, not the head, and leave with a simple one-page plan for 2024. This is the exact process that's allowed me and thousands of others to create a life and business by design and see our dreams come true year after year. You do not want to miss this free event. If you're not already on my email list, get over to pursuingfreedom.com, join my newsletter, check out all the free downloadable resources, and join the community of freedom seekers. Now, without further ado, let's hear from Neil. Thank you for being here today and enjoy the show. We've got Neil Mathweg with us today, and what a treat because Neil is a true inspiration and rock star in the real estate space, not only from the perspective of having built and scaled a successful business, but also becoming a coach and then working with agents. And what I love about Neil is that we're very philosophically aligned in business design to power the lifestyle design and to live the life we've always imagined. And I had Neil on the podcast a few years ago, and I would love for you to share the story yourself. But one of the things that really hit home with me was when he was talking about when he was surviving his success and had a lot of excuses for why he was working 24/7. And he finally decided to start taking Sundays off. And at the end of that one Sunday, when your daughter said to you, "Okay, Dad, I'll see you next Sunday," and how it was just kind of like a punch in the gut, because we all have these stories that we're doing it for the people we love, right? That we're doing what we're doing for others, when in fact, sometimes we're not really doing anything for anybody, and certainly not for ourselves. So with no further ado, Neil, I'll just let you intro yourself. Just if you could just share your backstory from the horse's mouth, and then I'm sure we've got lots of great questions for you to dig into.
You're the best, Erin. I appreciate you, and I'm so fired up to be here today. And it's been a journey, and it all started, I think, with just this thought of designing my own life, right? And I remember it was like 2015. I had this. It was in a mastermind, and it was another entrepreneur. He's a young guy, and he said, "I'm living a life by design," and I'm like, man, really? Like, you can really do that? Like, what? Like, he's young. That's why he can do that. I'm a family man. I got obligations. Like, I can't live a life by design. Right. And so I remember that from the very get-go of just having that thought that you can't, like, life happens to you instead of you happening to life. Right. And I think too, as real estate agents, I remember that story you referenced with my daughter that was earlier. And I just got to this place where life was controlling me. Like, I was working my butt off because I thought that's what I needed to do. Right. But my family got what is ever left over of me instead of the other way around. And so that moment where my daughter said to me, "I'll see you next Sunday." Like, "Thanks, Dad. Today was a great day. I'll see you next Sunday." Like, that changed me because I started to realize just how messed up life really, like how messed up I was, right? And how much of it I was in this race. And so when I started living a life by design, again, I thought that was crazy when he mentioned that in the mastermind. And then I started to do it, and I started to actually step into it. And I also got out on this journey of RVing thinking that I would find myself. I thought that's where Neil is, right? I thought once I get out to those mountains, or once I get to that beach, once I get to that ocean, that's where Neil is. That's what it's all about, right? And I got there, and the same old miserable Neil was there, right? And so in the last year, and that's why the weight is falling off of me, is because I've clearly identified my inner ding. I picked that up from Louise Hay. If you've ever heard Louise Hay, she's a beautiful woman that taught for many, many years, passed away in her 90s and taught all the way up to the day she died. And Louise Hay would say it's your inner ding. You know, what is it that fires you up, that just is that inner happiness, that inner ding? And so I started searching for that, and I started unpacking my past, and I started rewriting memories, and I started removing limiting beliefs that were standing in my way, and just retraining my subconscious brain to think differently, and then starting to be who I wanted to become. And in that, that's where Neil is. That's where I found myself. And so when you, I know I'm sharing a whole bunch here right out of the gate, but I see it as, once you've identified who that inner ding is, and you remove the limiting beliefs by going back to your past childhood and doing a lot of inner work, and then stepping into who you want to become, then you truly do start to see that you design your own life, right? Like that you do happen to life, that life doesn't happen to you. And that's where, like with the weight, it's just fallen off of me, because all I did is I did a confirmation bias exercise where I just wrote down all of the things that healthy people do. Oh, what do healthy people do? They drink water. They carry water bottles everywhere they go. They have Fitbits. They're exercising. They're moving. They're not. A lot of them don't drink coffee in the morning. They drink water right away. What do healthy people do? So I just started a year ago, just asking, January, more than a year ago, January of last year, I started asking myself, what do healthy people do in everything that I do? Because that's what I wanted to become. I knew that this wasn't who I was supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be up over 400 pounds, right? This is not the way God designed me to be. So then I started stepping into who I wanted to become. And in that, I just came up with a list of all the things that I needed to do. And everything I do is, what do healthy people do? Well, healthy people do that, then I'll do that, right? And this goes for so many areas in our life. Health is one of them. You want to practice this in business? You want to be more of a confident person? Well, what do confident people do? You want to be, and that's why you surround yourself with people like you, Erin, right? Because they want to be where you're at and done what you do. So they got to think like you think, right? And be who you want to become. And now I'm talking way too much.
No, not at all. I'm taking a bunch
I'll take
of
a
notes.
breath here.
Well, the thing is that the reason I brought you on here is because I stumbled across one of your Instagram posts, and it basically brought me to tears. And, you talk about be who you want to become, and, think like another person thinks, and all this sort of stuff. And within our programs and our coaching, we talk a lot about this inside out approach to creating the life of your dreams. And I resist in saying the inside out approach to creating success, because we all know that the word success for most people ends up showing up like money. But when money shows up, it doesn't necessarily change the feeling within. And do we feel successful is the question, because I see people who are stuck when their business is slow, and I see people who are stuck when their business is busy, like you talked about, when you're just surviving the journey of success, making excuses for why it just has to be this way, how I can't. You said life by design, I can't do that. It's like, well, says who? And when are you going to stop making excuses about it? Because ultimately, we all became self-employed for a reason. And when we think about what we're seeking within our business, we're seeking more business, we're seeking more money. What are we really seeking? We're seeking a feeling. And so you did the inside out approach. You created the external success is maybe in this garden of health is the weight, right? It's the physical state of being. That's the external. But what you were really seeking was, what does it feel like to be healthy? And so I just love the way that you approach it, because it's all integrated. And I do believe that when we address this from the inside out, that we don't really have to figure it all out, because it's already all figuring itself out. It's already all happening for us. So money, health, relationships, freedom, everything's already available to us. It's just our responsibility to claim it and stop making excuses for it. And, having you here as someone who coaches real estate agents, I would love to dig in a little bit into some of the things that we talked about, years ago, and how maybe some of those strategies have evolved or grown or expanded to what you're focused on today. We talked a lot about matchmaking and about priorities and how, your daily actions are a reflection of those priorities and things like that. So could you kind of give us a little walkthrough about what are the conversations you're having these days with the students in your programs? And I'm sure there's a lot of overlap that we could unpack.
For sure. I see right now the market has shrunk, in tightened up in one area. And when you shrink a balloon, when you pull on one end of the balloon and shrink one end of the balloon, there's another end of the balloon that expands. And right now, most of us are focusing on the shrink, and the shrink is buyers that are moving up. They're not moving up, right? Why would you? If you got a 2.85, you're not moving up to a 6, right? They're not moving today, right? So who's moving has changed, right? And that's into the shrink. Talking to teams that look at lead inflow of, the average lead inflow would be from lead into closing was 3 to 6 months. That was the average for many, 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 many years. Now it's 16 to 18. We got some teams reporting over 20 months of average from the beginning of the lead to the closing, right? So the pipelines are getting fuller and fuller and fuller. It's harder to get buyers across the finish line, right? The home affordability is as high as it's ever been. The interest rate, right? Like all of this stuff, they're in the squeeze. So then what part of the balloon is expanding? And there is a big part of the balloon is expanding. It's the need-based market. And I see it, I've got it down to 3. One of them, the first one and the most important one, is seniors. They're moving today, right? If mom needs to move into assisted living, it doesn't matter what interest rates are, right? They're going to be moving. Empty nesters, if they have a 4,000 square foot home and the taxes are 15 grand a year, they don't need that anymore, right? They don't need to take care of that. It doesn't matter what interest rates are, they're going to downsize, right? Then it even gets down into, the other one that is happening. So I've got the 3 that I really like is seniors, which then there's a whole bunch of subcategories, investors, and relocation. And investors is the weird one too, because there's a little bit of weirdness in the market, right? You're not really quite sure. People are a little hesitant, but with rates are up, so are the rents. So investors are still moving. And relocation, entrepreneurs are still moving, companies are still hiring. So relocation is big. And with relocation, we're focusing all of our efforts on YouTube because it's become so searchable and it's there. The other thing too with seniors is this is a market that is just exploding. And right now, 43% of our population is over the age of 55. And by the year 2045, 65% is going to be over that age. So the market is just not only expanding, we're like when in 2008, when the market churned, and I focused on short sales to get through the market. Like I remember the year before, I didn't even know what a short sale was. And then now I become a short sale specialist, right? I had to pivot in order to make it through the market. I said then, if I don't pivot to short sales, I'm not going to make it. If you don't pivot to REO, you're not going to make it. You got to go get another job. You're not going to make it. And I feel like that same squeeze is going on right now, but I feel like that pivot, instead of short sales, it's to seniors. And seniors are underserved. There's not enough agents out there patient enough to serve seniors. It's not a DocuSign world. It's face-to-face, it's handshake. But then once you get into the senior market, and I don't want to go too far into this, but once you get into the senior market, it's an ocean of opportunity. It's not a pond. It's an ocean of opportunity. And they need us. They need us really bad. So we've really, I still have the 3-pillar plan that we talk about, but we've really filtered our plans around working in these niches because this is where the business is. Go ask a closing agent, what's percentage of the closings have seniors in them? And I bet you they'll say 75% or higher.
Awesome. So talk to us a little bit about, well, first of all, I want to highlight something here is that what I love about you is what I'm hearing loud and clear is that you're seeking the opportunities. You sought the opportunities in 08, 09. You're seeking the opportunities now. There's always opportunity. Would you agree?
For sure.
And so when we talk about this from a, macro perspective, it's like, okay, is it fair to say that all human beings feel stuck at times, feel worried, anxious, stressed, uncertain? Yes. Does that make us special? No. So can we also recognize it? Can we create some kind of space between ourselves and the emotional state that we're observing ourselves in? Because emotions come and go, they're high and low. It doesn't matter. You could start your day sunshine and rainbows, and somebody cuts you off or hurts your feelings, and all of a sudden you're in a different state of emotion or state of mind. Can we detach ourselves and become observers of these emotions as they come and go and recognize they don't need to define us? I heard something once recently where somebody said, sometimes you have to borrow the light you see in others, and sometimes you have to borrow the light they see in you. And that, I think, is what's so powerful about finding mentors and coaches, is that they can typically see the light beyond the wall that you've created and that's been constructed by those limiting beliefs or those stories we tell ourselves, which are limited by the experience we've had to date. And I love all that, but what's interesting too is that I would wager that you can also borrow the fear you see in others. And that is what is so debilitating about the market we're in right now, is that I'm seeing a lot of people have a lot of conversation around the squeeze, right? Around how long it's taking to convert, around the fact that there's less leads, that my conversion ratios aren't as good, that this, and this. And so as these conversations happen at the office, excuse me, in the meetings, we're picking up on other people's fears and we're borrowing them for ourselves. And when we do that, we're in that squeeze. I like that analogy. You're missing which part of the balloon is inflated because your attention is on what's not working out. Yep. So talk to us a little bit about, I'm curious about, how do you personally process that? And how do you teach others to do it? You talked about, I did the work to remove the limiting beliefs. Well, what does that mean? Because somebody might be listening and be like, well, good for you.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Let's do this. This is a two-parter right here. So hopefully I won't talk too much about this, but if we focus whatever we focus on expands. Let's just start there, right? Whatever we focus on expands. So you get a choice. You get to focus on the opportunities, or you get to focus on the challenges, right? And if whatever you focus on expands. So if you're going to focus on the challenges, you're just going to keep getting more challenges. And if you're going to focus on your debts and your obligations and the challenges, you're only going to get more of them. So let's turn our attention to that, and let's focus on the opportunities, and whatever you focus on expands. But here's the thing, in concept, that's a great thing. Yeah, I get it, Neil. We got to be positive. I've been hearing that since I was a kid. I got to be positive, right? I get that. But it really comes down to your moment by moment by moment thoughts. See, I learned about the emotional guidance scale. I'm sure you've heard of it. And there's a list of positive emotions and a list of negative emotions. And in order to click into that positive emotion, first, you got to get into neutral, right? You got to quiet your mind. And so I think a lot of us don't see opportunities because we simply can't quiet our mind. We're so frazzled, we're so worried, and whatever our thoughts wire together, right? So if you have one negative thought, you're going to have another negative thought. So I call it stinking thinking. You got to get rid of the stinking thinking, right? And you got to catch yourself when you're doing it. And so you got to quiet your mind. How do I quiet my mind when I got all this stinking thinking going on and I'm worried and I'm fearful? Because I know once I quiet my mind, the answer will appear. It always does. It always has. It always appears, right? But I got to be quiet. I got to ready my mind to be able to see that. So what I've been practicing and what I teach to practice is practicing of quieting the mind. How can we quiet the mind? And then once we quiet the mind, we click into this positive zone. So I'm just going to do it really quick here. So if I'm freaking out about something, I got something that hit me and I'm now afraid about something, and something triggered something in me that I'm really afraid. That's whatever that triggered was something from my childhood. We'll get to that. That's the limiting beliefs. And I'm going to rewrite that in a little bit, but it triggered something against me. Right. And now I'm in a panic. Right. And now I got negative thoughts are going to fire together and wire together. So I'm going to have more and more negative thoughts. So I got to quiet my mind. I got to stop those thoughts. How do I do that? Well, I use a Louise Hay affirmation. I just say, all is well. Everything is working out for my greater good. From this situation, only good is going to come, and I am safe. If it's a big bill that maybe I'm afraid of, I'll say that bill is paid for in divine order. I don't need to worry about it, right? I look at money differently now. I look at money as playing the game of Monopoly, because that's really all that it is. But yet we get so wrapped up in it and worried about it and fearful about it. So I've just compartmentalized it. It's just, oh, I'm paying bills. I'm playing Monopoly. I'm shuffling money around, and, oh, I get another turn. Oh, did I make some more? Yep. Okay. And that's really the way I look at money now, right? And most of your thoughts and worries are triggered to money, right? So I feel like once you get rid of that, it all starts to look differently, right? But if you can quiet your mind in order to step out of it, right, and then get into the emotional guidance scale of getting a positive emotion, where I can then click into the zone. So this is what it looks like for me. I had something that hit me. I'm panicking. I'm freaking out. My mind's racing all over the place. I'm worried. I'm stressed out. I'm saying I got anxiety. I'm talking to my wife like I'm freaking out, right? Like I'm in one of those roles. Quiet my mind, all is well, everything is working out for my greater good. And I might have to say it over and over and over. All is well, everything's working out for my greater good. And then I start to try to get into the positive. And and the word for me that does it is thank you. I just say thank you, and I just all of a sudden my mind changes. And then I say, isn't it wonderful? So I'll just, all is well, everything's working out for my greater good from the situation, all is well. And then I'm starting to calm down a little bit now. And then I'm just going to say, thank you. Thank you. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Thank you. Thank you. And there's an affirmation video that I picked it up from, and I'll just say it over and over. And I even got goosebumps right now saying it, because it just picks me up into a different flow, right? And so I went through this whole process here, right? Where I'm in the panic, I'm stressing out, I'm defeated, I'm fearful, right? I'm all these negative emotions. I'm ashamed, maybe even. I might even feel embarrassed, right? Something that happened that triggered, and I guarantee you they're all negative emotions. And so then I need to, in that practice that. And then once I click into the zone, and I do this every morning before I get started, I want to be in the zone. And once I'm in the zone, thank you. Isn't it wonderful? And my kids thought I was crazy when I started doing it, but now they all do it, right? Like, it's like, because you just feel yourself getting in this zone, right? And then you're on fire. You're ready to go. Really, you're in the zone. You're ready to go. You're a different person. You got to have enough sleep to be able to do it. All that really matters, but you click into that and away you go. Now, what do you do about the limiting beliefs standing in your way? Like, Neil, all of this sounds really good. I think that's great, but that won't work for me, right? You don't know about me. You don't know the stuff that goes on inside my head. You don't know the childhood that I had, the past that I had, or maybe you didn't even have a bad childhood. Maybe you think you had a great childhood, like I did. I had a great childhood. My parents, I was in a safe home. But now going back and rewriting it, there was some things that changed in my mind, right? That I start to see a little bit differently, right? And none of it anybody did to me or anything like that. It's just my perception and how I looked at things. And so going back and speaking to that inner child is the part that has unlocked me. And one of them that you probably read about, or that was the post, was I had a moment when I was a child where I was playing football with my friends. It was 1985, and the only reason I know that is because it was the year the movie The Goonies came out. And I was playing football with my friends, and it was my best friend's house, and I was playing with kids that I didn't know. And one of the kids noticed that I looked like the character Chunk in the movie. And he was the chubby kid that did the truffle shuffle. And he's like, you look like Chunk. And I'm like, and my best friend stood up for me. He's like, no, he doesn't. Don't make fun. He doesn't look like Chunk. And it was awkward, right? Like, all the other kids are like, he's like, doesn't he look like Chunk? And they're all kind of pouring in on me, right? And my best friend standing up for me. Well, I wanted to diffuse it, right? Like, I felt bad for my best friend, and this is weird. So I just whipped up my shirt and did the truffle shuffle, made everybody laugh. They no longer were picking on me. My friend was everybody was laughing, right? Well, from that day forward, I began to program my brain that whenever I'm in an awkward situation, just make it funny. Just make them laugh, right? If you ever don't, and then what this got me into is seeing that I did it for acceptance, right? I wanted to be accepted. There was these kids making fun of me. Well, they all became my good friends after that, right? I got acceptance. So I started training my brain that I get acceptance by doing this, right? And all of this is damaging to me, right? I remember when I lost a bunch of weight. I've lost over 100 pounds 3 different times in my life. And one of those times I lost a whole bunch of weight, I realized that I couldn't do my Chris Farley impression as good anymore. And by the way, I do a really good Chris Farley, but I couldn't do my Chris Farley impression anymore because I was under 200, I was under 250 pounds. I wasn't big anymore. I didn't have it. And I even remember thinking, man, I can't do my Chris Farley impression anymore because I lost weight. See how thick that belief was? And how controlling that was. Like I didn't feel like I could lose weight unless I was on a diet, unless I had somebody right there with me, unless I white knuckled it all the way through it. That was the only way I could lose weight, because I believed that I was big boned. I believed that I had, my family's big and therefore I'm going to be big. Once somebody told me that I probably have something wrong with my thyroid. That's why I can't lose weight. So I had all these limiting beliefs, right? All these reasons to believe that I can't lose weight. And then when I started rewriting my past, my childhood, going back to when I was 8 years old and speaking to that 8-year-old boy and telling him, man, you already are loved. You didn't need their acceptance. Look at your best friend stand up for you, man. He loved you no matter what. You didn't need to do that. And it's okay that you did. It's all good, right? And I would just keep speaking to him and speaking to him. And in that's what I begin to rewrite. And with it, I get a whole list of all of the things that I should be saying to myself that I haven't been, right? Because that story is kind of embarrassing to me, right? Like that story, I felt shameful that I had to do that to my body, that I did that, right? There was shame. And if I really go back and start talking about that story, it wasn't even one I'd even told my wife about, right? It wasn't even a story that I wanted to talk about. But when I flushed it all out and I looked at it differently and then I rewrote it, it just became so powerful and it became my new affirmations in my life and what I really wanted to start programming my life around. And then with that, I just started being who I wanted to become, like really, truly believing that I could walk into a pizza restaurant and be who I wanted to become. Because healthy people go to pizza restaurants all the time, right? But when I walked into a pizza restaurant, I started out with cheese bread or breadsticks. And then if it was in Wisconsin, you got to have cheese curds with it. Right. And then after that, we would, you'd have bread and then the kids didn't eat their crust. So I always ate their crust. Right. Like that's not what healthy people do. Healthy people go into a pizza restaurant with their family and they order a salad. Right. And then they eat 2 slices of pizza and then they don't eat all the bread crust and all that. Right. And that's what I started doing. So now when I go into a pizza restaurant, what do healthy people do? I'll scan the room. Last time we walked into one, there was this big ripped dude and he was over there eating a salad. I'm like, perfect. That's what healthy people do. Right. And so that's how I've started to live. Just everything is who do I want to become? I've clearly identified who I want to become. That's the big thing. You got to know who you want to become. Right. That's the big thing. What's your inner ding? Who are you? And when I wrote out my self-determined success criteria and I look at who I want to become, who my new you is what I call it, it's completely different than what I ever imagined it would be. I mean, it's around lifestyle. It's around the life that I want to live. It's designed. And the cool thing is I have 11 of them on the list and 8 of them I already am doing today. Right. So I'm already living that new you that I want to live. Right.
Yeah. You've touched upon so many important things. I mean, first of all, this idea of like, who do I want to become and be the person I want to become? And the fact that the past does not define what you've become or who you want to be or how you want to feel. Like it only comes down to when are you willing to make a decision about what needs to change and then decide to try to be like the person you want to become. So like, if I want to be like somebody who's financially independent, then I got to do the things that they do or be like the person I want to become. If I want to be someone who doesn't work 24/7, but I want to have, the freedom to live an awesome life, then who do I know and how do I be like the person I want to become? So I like the idea that the future is yours to design in spite of the past. And it doesn't matter when, you make that decision, but once you make the decision, you become limitless. And I also really like this idea of allowing yourself to redefine it whenever you need to and as frequently as you want to, because the truth is that what stressed you out years ago created beliefs within you because those thoughts became so habitual that they became a programming around how it's supposed to be. And what matters to you today is different. And so to be willing to create the landscape of the future based on who you are today and all the things you've learned and all the things you need to leave behind. It's beautiful because it's potential, it's opportunity, and it's where the attention needs to go, because where the attention goes, energy flows. And we want to be flowing energy towards opportunities. We want to be flowing energy towards the person we're becoming, not the person we once were, the things that no longer serve us. So I really appreciate that. And I mean, Neil, you're such a bright light and an inspiration. And I would love for you to share, for anyone listening, how can they find you and follow you? Because you're making an impact even when you don't know it. And you probably know it by now. But the interesting thing is, one of the things I always tell my students is that if your message could help one person today, if you could help one person today, then shame on you for playing small. And I just want you to know that I'm watching and people are watching. And thank you for not playing small, like for putting it out there, because the impact is huge. Like, your messages are so powerful and everybody can relate. And so just first, thank you. And second, how can people find you and follow you and get in touch with you?
Thank you so much. The best way is agentrisecoaching.com. It's my website. I'm on all social medias as well, Agent Rise or Neil Mathweg, at Neil Mathweg or at Agent Rise. And I would love to connect with you. And, thank you too, because I like, it's so scary. I feel like I'm one chapter ahead, right? Like, I mean, I'm out on this journey. I'm one chapter ahead. And this last year was just so transformational for me. And everything that I learned and everything that I did in my own life and in my wife's life, like, this isn't something else we could add to this too, is just our marriage is just on a whole nother level with all of this as well. And with this, it is, something that's kind of scary to talk about, right? You're putting yourself out there. And I'm a real estate coach. I can talk about real estate transactions and real estate, helping agents with real estate and building their real estate business all day long. But when it gets into personal development, I've always kind of shied away from that because truthfully, I didn't feel like I was fit to help in personal development. And in this last journey, just coming unlocked and seeing things completely different than I've ever seen it before, I'm like, I got to teach this. I got the heart of a teacher. I got to share this. And so it is scary. It is scary to step out and share it. So thank you for saying that. And, but I appreciate that it's helping too, because it's hard to do, but I know that it will help because I know that there's so many that are in the same exact shoes that I was in just 2 years ago. Like you think you're coming alive. You think you're going, but just something's missing. Something's missing. You're not, it's like you get that new home and then you get there and like 3 months later, you're miserable again, right? Like all the excitement wears off of the newness and then you're just right back to it. And that's the way I felt with RVing. And once I rewrote my past, and we have rewritten so many of them, I'm up to 11 now, strong memories, along with a whole bunch of others that went with it, and rewrote that and spoke to myself differently than I've ever spoke to myself before. Started speaking to myself like a really good friend would speak to me, right? Instead of the lie that I've been telling myself. And then the part with my wife, this has just been amazing. So, and this is getting vulnerable again here, but we were in the middle of a fight. My wife and I were in the middle of an argument, and she said something to me that just stuck, and it takes a lot to get through the head, right? You guys, us men. And so she said something to me, and she yelled to me. She said, "You never ask me how I feel. You always just want to coach me. You never ask me how I feel. You always just want to coach me." And I'm like, okay, as a coach, yep, I get it. That's true, right? But she was so right. And I wrote it down. Ask Jenny how she feels. I'm horrible about that. She'll tell me about a situation and I'll immediately start coaching her. I'll immediately tell her how she needs to fix it and how she needs to solve that problem. When actually what she needs me to do is slow down and listen to her and ask her how she feels and understand. So at the same time she yelled that at me, ask me how I feel, or I wrote that down, and you never asked me how I feel, and I wrote that down, and I'm thinking about it. At the same time, I was reading a book called The Big Leap. And in there, the Gay Hendricks talks about how his wife and him at the time have gone 11 or 12 years without an argument. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I mean, if we could go 12 days without an argument, that would be amazing. I can't imagine 12 years. Are you kidding me? But what he said was the reason they've done it is because they don't fight for the victim. They fight for an understanding. And I said, that's exactly what I'm doing wrong here. I'm fighting for the victim. In every argument, I'm the one that's at fault. I'm the victim here, right? I'm standing up for myself because of this, right? And you're standing up for yourself because of that. And that's the reason the argument exists. But what if instead I started to understand my wife instead of fight for the victim? And so what if I asked her how she feels? And then what if I start understanding how she feels because of something that happened to her in her childhood? And then what if I start rewriting her inner child with her, like I've been doing, and I start going deep with her, and we go back to these childhood memories of 8, 9, 10 years old, where she had some very traumatic things happen in her life. And what if I actually start to understand her instead of trying to coach her? And so in that, I fell more and more in love with my wife. Like amazing. Like going back and speaking to an 8-year-old, like she had something happen to her life, and I'm in that moment with her now, and I understand the moment, and we go back and she's 8 years old, and her and I are speaking to that 8-year-old child in her, and we're saying things that she needs to hear. And we're both crying because we're both in this moment together. That's where I mean, and I love my wife. I never knew I could love her anymore. Let me just put it that way. Like we have a good relationship, we have a great marriage, but it just went to a whole nother level because I really, really understand her, and she really understands me. And then when we unlock these, when we go back and we rewrite these past childhood memories or whatever it might be, when we rewrite all of this, you unlock yourself. So
It's huge. I mean, the reason that I went on that tangent to begin with, in terms of you starting out talking about removing your limiting beliefs and then quickly rolling into, the current market and the way to find business and all this stuff, is that I feel very deeply that the issue isn't the fact that we need to know who to target and how to get them and how to convert them and all this other stuff, because that training is rampant in our industry, the what to do to get. But that's not the block. The block comes from within. And it's like, you could go and get inspired till you're blue in the face on what to do and how many boxes to check. But if we don't come from the inside out, then we continually find reasons to make excuses for why our life and business don't look and feel exactly the way we want them to be. And it's usually because of the beliefs that we picked up along the trail that we're still applying old limitations to new ideas or new concepts or new, when I say ideas, I mean, like, you have a new vision for yourself and you apply an old limitation that needs to be removed. It doesn't matter what you accomplish. You could make all the money in the world and you're still going to come back to feeling something's not quite right. So I'm just glad that we did the deep dive there. And I mean, kind of why I had you on today, because it's sometimes good to hear it from someone else's perspective or someone else's voice. But the truth of the matter is that we're all longing for something, and it's a feeling. It's a feeling of good. It's a feeling of safe, of accomplished, of proud, of, happy, alive, joyful, enthusiastic, present, here, awake, aware, curious, finding ways to help people. And the moment we start talking about how to get deals and how to get more money to fix what's going on inside of us is the moment things just either don't happen or they just don't feel good. And I think people are just tired of swimming upstream. People are tired of thinking, yeah, I know how to go get more money, but I got to work harder. It's a numbers game, log more hours. Like all that stuff is just kind of getting dreary, Yes. So thank you for sharing all that. And I so appreciate your perspective. I'm proud of you and I'm happy for you. I'm so happy for you because you're finding your way from the inside out. And it seems like, the more you do this work, the more joy that's going to come your way. And the more joy that comes your way, the more opportunity. And you just truly, it's like taking the lid off. You're unleashed,
Right.
So thank you so much. All right, Pursuing Freedom friends, thank you as always for being here. And if you are enjoying this content, I implore you to please, wherever you're consuming it, leave that 5-star review. It helps us continue to attract amazing guests like Neil and help this podcast get found so we can help more people build that life you don't need a vacation from. I love and appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.